If a man isn't emotional, it's a problem. If he's too emotional, it can be a problem. Marvin Gaye once said, I know a man is not supposed to cry, but these tears I can't hold inside. Opening up to someone is hard for just about anybody. But it's really hard for men to open up to women and show a vulnerable side. Some women feel as if the only way a man can show authenticity is to display vulnerability. However, a lot of guys aren't with that because it may have the wrong effect on the lady. All right. So there's a thin line between being vulnerable and oversharing or trauma dumping, so to speak. And what happens if you cross that line and tell her something that she's not ready for? Can a man be too vulnerable around his woman? We'll discuss that and more on this episode of the Talk to Q radio show. No experts, just opinions. Buckle up.
T2Q Radio.
Hey, what up, Q? What up, Radio World?
What's going on, people? I want to welcome all of you to the Talk to Q radio show. My name is Quincy, and this is my show. And I'm coming to you live from the south side of the T2Q Man Cave. Today is Tuesday, April the 12th, 2022, and this is episode number 991. Now, for those of you who are new to the Talk to Q radio show, welcome. If this is your first time, then let me explain how this show works. The Talk to Q radio show is a show for adults to get together and rant about whatever the trending topic may be. Anything that fits into the society and culture category, we discuss it here uninterrupted and completely uncensored. If you have something to get off your chest, then you can do so from the interactive chat room, and your comment may be read on the air. If you want to be a guest, then hit me up on social media at TalkToQ or email me at talktoqnow@gmail.com. Now, unlike most shows where you simply just listen to the host, I allow you the opportunity to do the talking. I'll ask the questions and you have a chance to express an opinion or rant on a subject. I want to hear what you have to say, which is why I named the show Talk to Q instead of Listen to Q. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe this show. Doing that will help expose me to more people on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and more places. So please take a second to do at least one of those things, if not all. It'd be definitely appreciated. All right, so let me go to the T2Q virtual phone lines to see who will be joining me this evening. I will start first in the Show Me State of Missouri and welcome back this young lady, Miss Chandra B. Chandra, what's happening?
You. Not much. What's going on? How are you?
I am doing well. Glad to have you back. Shout out to Angel Wright, Speak Up Sis in the Peach State of Georgia. And let me bring on this gentleman from the DMV area in Maryland. What is Maryland? The Terrapin State? What is Maryland? I don't even know. Mr. Derek Jones. Derek, what's going on, man?
You can call it whatever you want. It's a whole bunch of things.
What's the most popular one? Is it? I don't know what.
I mean, Terrapin, Maryland Terrapins. You know, that's the college or whatever. And
yeah,
I don't know what state we would call the old line state. That's what it's called because the Pennsylvania and Maryland is the Mason-Dixon line. So we're technically the South, even though we don't feel like it. Yeah.
I'll never remember that. And
I know you won't.
You all the South either. So
it's very insignificant.
All right. And then I'm going to travel to the Garden State of New Jersey, a little further north. And welcome back, Chrissy. Chrissy, what's going on?
What's going on? Thank you so much for the invite. I love being on the show. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here. And I have a couple of people backstage. I will get to them in just a moment once they are ready. So we'll go ahead and kick things off. I want to start with the ladies first about this, vulnerability in men. So to the ladies and whoever wants to respond, you're more than welcome to. If I were to try to hook you up with a dude and I told you that he's a nice guy and he's not afraid to show his emotions, What do you think I mean by that when I say he's not afraid to show his emotion? What comes to mind?
I'll go first. I'm always speaking up. This so the way I would take it is that he's a guy who will express what he's feeling and not be tied down to the normal, social standards or ideas of being too emotional for a man. So that's how I would take it, as someone who is just going to tell you how they feel, good, bad, or the ugly.
Um, my first impression would be is that you feel some way about it. Q, you feel some way about him, and so because you warning me up front that he's not afraid to show his emotions. So I'm assuming he a crier. So that's kind of how I would look at it on the front end, right? Um, but I also understand that depending on that relationship you may have with him, I'll be like, all right, that's cool, because for me it doesn't matter. It's the extremes that I would be concerned about.
So let me ask a question. Hold on. Can I ask a follow-up question to that? You said for you, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter whether a man will show his emotion or not show his emotion? Like for you, you're ambivalent to it?
No, I'm saying I don't like extremes. So I don't like anybody that's going to have no emotion, or somebody that is, if I say one little thing to him, or her, and they, falling apart. I don't like extremes. So I'm saying it wouldn't matter. At the end of the day, if Q thought he was a crier, it wouldn't matter to me. I would have to be the judge of that. But when a man says, I want to introduce you to my boy, he ain't afraid to show his emotion. I'm like, what is that? For a man to say that about another man, that says something about that man or how he sees that man. Exactly. You understand what I'm saying? And so
I guess I'm an emotional being. Give me all the emotions. I want to feel all the feels.
All right. Well, I guess I feel what you're saying, Chandra. That would be more of a reflection on me probably than him. So I totally understand that. But let's define what's considered, I guess, too emotional for a man, and let's get a man's opinion. And Derek, I'll ask you. I mean, what do you think society thinks is too emotional for a man?
So this is so it depends, right? There's nuance to it, right? Because it depends on the person that is making the assessment of it, right? I think there's a certain segment of the population that thinks that most signs of emotions from a man is too much. Then, to what Chandra was saying, those extremes of where that person probably need to go sit down and talk to somebody because it's just so excessive. It's like every little thing you're crying and, oh my God, you hurt my feelings about everything. I think that's like, it's excessive. There's something else going on there where it's not really even about the person that they're with. It's just who they are. And it's going to be like that everywhere they go. That to me is a lot. But I think society is like a sliding scale. I've met women who didn't want to see any of it. And I met women who appreciated the fact that you could share. And then, like I said, there's that extreme where it just starts to look, I don't know, it just comes off weird. If like everything that you are upset about, it's always crying all the time, every day. I think that's a lot. So I don't know. It's nuanced because I've met, like I've literally went out on dates with women that were like, yo, I need for you to if you show emotion, then that means you're weak. Or, I need for you to kind of man up to the point where I need to kind of fear you a little bit in order for me to respect you. And I was like, wait, that's not me. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go, because there's a thin line. You want to do that, there's a thin line between that and like abuse. Mm-hmm. How far do you really want to go? So anyway, I'm gonna land there.
All right. So Chandra, you mentioned extremes a few minutes ago. What's considered too emotional in your personal opinion?
So if I'm looking at it, I'm thinking more on the aspect of whining, crying about a lot of things. And so, because emotion is all things. It can also be anger, right? It can also be a bunch of different things. But if we're looking at vulnerability, it's like you got a sad story for everything, like everything. You come in with the sad story. And, you know, I always look at, and this may be something else, but if you're telling me about your history and you are always the victim, my eyebrow begin to raise when you do that. Like, you know, do we have any self-awareness? And so it's like that, you know, I'm okay with you showing me your underbelly, but if your underbelly is always exposed, then I don't know how I feel about that, if that makes sense.
All right. All right. I get that. And in the chat room, let's see. Dope Discussions Live says too emotional is someone who just dumps their thoughts and opinions on anybody who will listen with no boundaries. They don't read the room. Okay, so let me go back to the T2Q virtual phone lines and bring in a show legend. You know, my show legends got special introductions.
She's your queen.
Residing in the Lone Star State of Texas, please welcome show legend Queen Cole to the Talk to Q radio show. Queen, what's going on? What's happening, Queen?
All right. Good evening. It's All-Star Cast today. Oh, hey, everybody.
All right. Let me get you right in here. What's considered too emotional for a man, in your opinion?
Ooh-wee. I was just listening to y'all responses backstage, and I had to go back to a personal experience. I was dating someone, and at first I was thinking like maybe he's too emotional, but I had to really check myself that I was at a point where I was emotionally unavailable, and I was used to guys that were unemotionally available. So to hear a guy saying, you know, I had this going on, I had that going on, this broke me down, I was like looking a little bit crazy. So I think sometimes we have to look at our levels too, like, okay, am I not being more open and receptive to this person's situations? But then as we further went along, I had some great things going on, but I was sort of afraid to tell him because he was having all these bad things going on. So I was like, is this going to make him feel like lower? So it's just such a fine line with us being human. I think you just have to know your person and know your tolerance for where you are with sympathy and with empathy. So, I don't think there's a such, well, I guess there is a such thing as too much. Like Derek said, you need to, if it's too excessive, then you do need to seek help. I can't help you.
All right. And one more person to bring on to the show. And he's in the Magnolia State of Mississippi, my home state. And welcome back, my boy Bailey. Bailey, what's going on, man?
Hey, everybody, how y'all doing?
Doing well. And Chats and Vibes with Miss T chimed in from Texas. She said, I need him to be able to empathize and express his feelings. And so, Bailey, let me get you right in this, man. And, you know, guys my age and older, for the most part, grew up with the mindset that if you that you show love through actions and not words. It now appears that, you know, both are required or expected these days. But some people still view a display of emotions as a sign of weakness. So, Bailey, as somebody who's a generation under me, I mean, you're in your 30s. So is that still the case with a lot of guys that you're seeing, that a display of emotions can be a sign of weakness to other guys?
Man, you know, that's a good question. Ooh, man. As far as you mean as far as words?
Yeah. Or I mean, or just a display of emotions, you know. It can be anything. It can be from what he says to what he does. Maybe he's a hugger or a crier, you know.
I don't think showing emotion you know, impacts other guys in any kind of way. I just think it's what you're showing emotion about. You know what I mean? You know, if it's a child, or, you know, you lost someone, I think everybody respect that. You reached a big milestone or accomplishment. I think every man respect that. But I mean, if you're crying because she broke your heart, you know, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just I wouldn't expect, open arms from other men. It's just not the way we love. So I think it's just what you're emotional about. Not that there's anything wrong with being emotional about those things. No, I don't want to say that. It's just, you know, I just wouldn't expect it. You know.
All right, so hold on. Let's go right there
Y'all
for a
not
moment.
y'all are not getting a hug from Bailey, so get your heart broken.
All right.
I want to jump in real quick and just say
Yeah,
I can tell you both ends of the spectrum. So my dad is 67 and he comes from that old school machismo, right? Like you don't show emotions. You're a man and that's it, and you don't cry, you don't nothing. Although he cried on my wedding day. But anyway, you don't show any emotions, nothing like that. Then I fast forward and look at my 15-year-old son, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. He will tell you how he's feeling, what he's thinking. I mean, he doesn't break down and cry or anything like that, but he's very big with his words and expressing himself, and he's very emotionally intellectual, is what I like to say. He has that intellect in his emotions. So they're two ends of the extremes, right? So I do think generationally it is shifting. I do believe that now the younger generation are really more open to sharing their emotions as a male.
okay. And I'm going to get to the family side of things. I'm glad you brought that up, but I want to double back to what Bailey said and ask the ladies, um, how do you feel about a man who cries over a woman? A woman breaks his heart and he cries. I mean, do you all think that's like a beautiful thing, or you look at it some other type of way?
I think it's just a human thing. I mean, why is it acceptable for women to cry over a guy? And it could be a bad guy. It could be just he's just awful, but they're crying over, and then the village is gonna come, gonna scoop her up, girl, get your paper, get your we're gonna boost her up and just be there. Why can't guys still have that space? I don't think that's cool that we have those double standards where guys can't express themselves. If you feel heartbroken, that's across the board. You're heartbroken. It hurts. So I feel like guys do have to have those safe spaces. Maybe they can't do it with the guys, they shoot pool with, but maybe their brothers or their frat or whoever. I feel like guys do need that outlet to be able to say, like, yo, this hurt, instead of using bad coping mechanism, drinking, smoking, illicit sex to cope with the situation. So I think guys, they need that outlet to be able to say, like, this hurt and I'm not good with it. So that's how I feel. I don't think it's anything wrong with a guy saying that he's heartbroken.
All right, Chandra, you going to add something?
Yeah, I just think it's context. So I 100% agree with her. I think that they need to have that space. So I don't care if it's their mom, their brothers, their whatever, somebody that they're close to that loves them, supports them. But if you trying to holler at somebody and you in there crying about the last chick that broke your heart, I ain't trying to hear that. You can keep that level of vulnerability to yourself. And not saying I mean, especially it depends on how. I don't mind hearing the story, but if that's what we talk about just about every time we talk, then I'm more of a friend, and you're not trying to holler at me, because there's a difference, right?
Uh-huh.
And I want you to be able to share, but like if that's the only thing we talking about, I have an issue with that.
Mm. All right. So if she cheated on you with the Uber driver, don't tell Chandra and try to holler. Don't she ain't trying to hear it. And Chasson Vibe said, I would love for men to learn how to express themselves without shutting down or lashing out. And Dope Discussion said, a man who cries over a woman is human, and I consider him to be healthy, versus a dude who's going to drink and smoke his pain away. And you can also add and have sex, because that's what a lot of guys try to do too. And so let's look at this from a family aspect. And Derek, I'll go back to you on this. What do you think most people think is acceptable for a man to reveal in front of his son? All right. Can he cry in front of him? Can he say that he loves his wife in front of his son? You know, what about even saying I love you to his son? I mean, is that something that men should be doing? And you're on mute, bro.
Should they be doing it? I think absolutely. I think we damage the generation that's coming behind us by not allowing them to feel things and express themselves. And as much as we want to claim, you know, being these, you know, ultra masculine, you know, we got to go out here and fight the world and we don't feel anything. The opposition to that is that you hold it in. And then that turns into stress. And how much can you really hold before you crack? Like I went through that myself. Like I put the world on my back and I didn't want anybody to see me break until I broke. And along with that breaking came tears and everything else because I couldn't take it. And so for somebody to say, nah, dude, you can't do that, you can miss me with that. And if I have a son, if he gets hurt, yeah, you know, hey, you know, son, sometimes you get hurt. But if he's crying because his knee is bleeding, get that tear out, man. It hurts. Like I'm not and there's a population of men that would call that weak, but we're human. Like I always tell people, we go through a lot of the same emotions that women go through. It may not look the same, but it's in there. And I'm not saying to just dump everything on everybody you talk to, but we be crazy to think or even say that we can't and won't show anything. Like I think that like we got guys out here, like men are like leading in like suicide and all this other stuff because they're holding so much stuff in and they don't know, they don't have nowhere to you know, to release it. So they in the bar and doing all these other toxic things because they don't have anywhere to go. So that ain't, I don't, maybe this is the grown-up version of me, but I can't subscribe to that anymore. That's how we were raised, Generation X. We were raised that way, but I can't continue to perpetuate that because it's harmful. So I'm gonna just leave that there.
All right, Chrissy, do you agree that it can be harmful to not display emotions in front of your child? And also talk about maybe for if a woman is single, and they may try to overcompensate by toughening their sons up. You know, if he falls and hurts himself, rub some dirt on it. You ain't hurt, get up and play, and all that stuff. I mean, can that be damaging as well?
I absolutely think so. So it's it's a good point that you bring that up because so I grew up with my dad, like I said, being machismo and all of that, but I also grew up with very strong women. So with me having been a single mom for a lot of years, I was taught by these women. So it's not just a man thing, right? I was taught by these women that I don't need a man and I need to be strong and independent. And I couldn't cry either. I couldn't show my emotions either. So I did pass that on so I have 3, 28, 21, and 15. So I did pass that on to my 28 and 21-year-old. And I definitely see where it's I mean, it hasn't broken them down, but it does cause some discourse in their relationships with me teaching them and telling them, don't cry, shake it off. It's a feeling, you'll get past it. Like these are things that I would say to them, like, oh, come on, it's a scrape, whatever. Like, I'm not taking you to the hospital. We're not doing that kind of thing. Or, when they went through emotional breakups in relationships, it was like, shake it off, you'll be fine. However, I find that I kind of changed gears with my 15-year-old and I wasn't so kind of like man up, with him. I'm allowing him to be vulnerable. I'm allowing him to feel his emotions and express them. And I think he's just like, and I think that's why he's just emotionally intelligent at this point, because I've allowed him to go through that process. And I feel like when he finally has his relationship, he's not going to be broken. There's not going to be so much toxicity in that relationship because he's learned to work through whatever emotion he is having. So I think if you hinder it, bottle it up, you don't know how to work through it, it goes into your adulthood, it causes adult trauma. So I think it does hurt in the long run. And unfortunately, my first two, they say it all the time. It's like toast when you have kids. The first one, you burn it, you screw it up. The second one, you get it half right. By the third one, it's perfect. So, You know,
So always have 3 kids.
there you go.
All right. And your girl Tasha said, absolutely, men hurt too. Why not? And Mr. Shelton, Mississippi, was commenting on you saying you had a 28-year-old. Talking about, dang, you look young. And Dope Discussions Live said, I made the mistake of not showing emotions in front of my sons. I don't recommend it. But all right, so let's go here. Let's go to the relationship side of things and get a little deeper there. For a man to be vulnerable in the presence of a woman, it means ignoring, his discomfort and expressing, his genuine self. However, most men tend to advise other men that they should never let their guard down in front of a woman and expose themselves. So, Bailey, I'll ask you, what do you think the biggest reason men tend to keep their feelings on the inside? Is because they're afraid of looking weak in front of a woman, or they're afraid that she may take that information and later use it against him?
Hmm. Okay, the reason why men don't. Um,
Which
I
one do you think
think
is more likely?
out of the two,
Mm-hmm.
man, I probably say use it against them. And I'm not saying all women, and I don't want to be the bad guy on this take, but you know, when it's good, man, it's good. Baby, I'm here for you. I understand. You'll get through it. And when it go bad, it's the opposite of that. You know what I mean? Man, they'll punch you in the face with you know with what you confided in. And so I think some men just would rather not be vulnerable to that. You know what I mean? So I think I don't think it's the right thing to do, but I just believe it's pride, and I believe it's trust too. You know what I'm saying? For you to not be that comfortable with who you're with,
Mm-hmm.
there's a trust aspect, which you may need to look deeper into, because maybe you shouldn't be with that person if you don't feel comfortable being able to open up with that person. You know what I mean? Maybe she's not for you, or maybe this just some seasonal. If you're not comfortable enough to be able to what I'm saying, talk with her and y'all build and really be a team, and have each other's back.
All right. All right. Derek, how do you feel, man? Do you think that men are more afraid of looking weak or more afraid of what she's going to do with that ammunition they're giving her?
So this is interesting. I actually talked about this quite a bit, and I think most men, based on what I've seen, will say that they don't want the woman to bring it back up. And the problem with this is that line by which that man feels safe versus not is so thin that, like, if a woman breaks that trust, like 3 girlfriends before, none of the ones in the future are gonna get it, right? Like, you got one person, maybe 2, that brings it back up, and now everybody else is not going to get it later. Like, they would have to be super exceptional to make you feel super comfortable for you to even give them a little bit. And even then, it's like, I don't know whether I should, because the possibility is there. It's like you only got a couple of chances for that man to show up that way before he shuts that thing all the way down, because it's that fear. Number one, it is partially of looking weak, but it's also that fear of being judged. The fear of, and I know men and women feel like this too, but it's the fear of being judged. And it's also the fear that when you do it, not only may they rub it in your face, but now you don't look like the image of what they thought they were getting. So before I allow myself to do that, I have to protect myself from feeling like that first, just to make sure. So that's why I say it's hard, because it's a lot of women out here that are like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. This should be a safe space. Why isn't he sharing it? Ain't you? It's 2 chicks before you. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna land there.
All right. All right. Good stuff. And D. Harris chimed in from Michigan. She says, any female that uses your emotions against you is someone who is toxic, and you probably shouldn't be in that environment, and vice versa. Roderick chimed in from Mississippi, said, I think it's a little bit of both. Most likely to be looked as weak. No man wants to hear we broke up because you're too emotional. All right. And so, ladies, have any of you, and you can be honest, there's nobody watching this. Have any of you ever used a man's vulnerability against him? Did you kind of put that in the bank and save it for later when they told you something?
I would say no, I haven't. There is, and so when Bailey was talking, my thing was, is it he don't trust me or he don't trust himself? Where's this trust coming from? Because a lot of times we don't have to do anything. It could have been done from before, or what the dialogue that's going on in your head about what I'm potentially going to do with that. I have never used anything. I think what if I've done anything in terms of exposing vulnerability is where you're not quite 100% honest here, and then when something goes wrong, you real honest, like you don't put no sugar on it. You like give it to them 100% raw. It's not something that they've said and I use it against them. It's something about, all right,
Okay.
now
I ain't gonna lie.
now I need
I
to
ain't
give
gonna
it to
lie.
you.
I will give you an example of I don't it's not a practice, it's not my practice. But my ex-husband, it was a very toxic relationship. He was a malignant narcissist, okay? And he would push my buttons consistently to trigger me. Um, Hence ex-husband. So there was one day that he just really pushed me to my limit, and I knew his relationship with his mother. And I just turned around and said, well, at least my mother loved me. You know, and it was but it was I was already at that point. So he was vulnerable enough to tell me about his relationship with his mother and kind of where things went. And I think at that point it was enough for me, and I wanted to hurt him as much as he was hurting me. And then it just got even worse after that. But so there was, I won't lie and say that there was never a time that I did it. I definitely did do it. Hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch. All right, Queen, calling you mighty quiet.
Yes, no, I was just waiting, but Bailey, you said the key word I think was trust, and then Chrissy, what you just said is exactly what I was going to say. Hurt people hurt people. There's no way that I would ever use something as an atomic bomb, like a boom and just blow the whole spot up. Because if I did that, then that means I'm in a bad place that I have to even go there. So that you admitting that, Chrissy, being transparent is really great, because that's the reason why somebody would do that. But then also, guys, we got to know that guys and girls, that there are levels to it. Like, I'm not just going first date. Okay, I'm telling you this. No, it's levels to this. There's keys to unlock. So you give somebody enough information, and then you trust them with that. If they carry it well, then you can unload heavy things. But sometimes people are not ready to carry heavy things, and we got to know who we're giving this information to. So, yeah, y'all are hitting a lot of good gems in this one.
All right. And Dope Discussions in Louisiana said all relationships run the risk of maybe being hurt down the road, but not opening up to your partner is a guarantee that you will never get any closer than you are at that moment. Excellent point.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent point. And okay, man, y'all are good. All right, so let's go here. Some women are taught as girls to be, maybe not directly, but to be the emotional savior for a guy. That whole Beauty and the Beast thing. So, Chandra, does the desire to tame a man come from maybe some form of insecurity or a need to prove oneself worthy of a man for people who think like that?
To tame a man is, I guess I'm misunderstanding.
Well, like some guys, they have to have that common. Some women want to be the common influence for the guy. Like, I don't know if anybody watches the Avengers, like Black Widow was to the Hulk. The sun's going down, big guy. When they get emotional, ready to lose it, good or bad, she's kind of that common influence, and maybe she gets some type of satisfaction for being able to keep her man from wilding out about whatever may be going on.
Q, I would have to pass. I don't know. I don't know that that's a insecurity. I think that we, as women, are nurturers and caregivers, and so if we see someone going in that direction, and we believe that we can support it, help it, prevent it, I think that that's a natural inclination for us as nurturers to want to make sure that you don't go somewhere that's not safe for you.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying it's a natural response. And Chrissy, what do you think? You agree with that? It's a natural response for women to, for some women to want to be the common influence for a guy?
Yeah, and I don't know that I agree. I agree with what Sandra said, but I don't believe that we're taught. I guess depending on where how you grew up, I know I was definitely not taught to do that. Anytime I try to come in to rescue a man emotionally, my family's looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" Because they're like, "That is not your job. Leave that boy alone." Because at that point, they're looking at him as a boy. But we are natural, I do get a sense of worth when I am able to see that I can make a change in a man's emotions, or see that I can make him influence him in a certain way, in a positive way, never in a negative way. But I do feel a sense of worth when I can positively influence his emotions or his thoughts and ideas. I don't know that it's something that I wanted to grow up and be and do. But as a natural giver, even with my profession as a nurse, it's just caregiving and nurturing is just something that I find joy and happiness in.
Okay. All right. And so a couple more questions and we'll get ready to wrap things up. Question number 9. And this is for the fellas. And I'll start with you first, Derek. Do you think that some guys use, I guess, well, let's put it this way. Some guys know how to use their vulnerability to work in their favor and use it against women to manipulate them into sex or whatever it is they're looking for. And because some women think that if a man's being vulnerable, he's being honest and they completely trust him, even though he may not be genuine. So you might have to put on your Billy hat, Derek. And for those who don't know who Billy is, you need to watch his show, Relationship Gumbo. But do you think some guys use their vulnerability to gain a woman's trust for nefarious reasons?
10,000,000%. Yes, absolutely. And here's and for those who just for like 2 seconds, Billy is the version. I created a character to illustrate the version of me who was extremely toxic because of me not being able to manage my emotions. So the way that this works, now that I can look back and speak about it intelligently, is if women tend to be, I hate to say more emotional because y'all just follow my logic. If a woman tends to be the more vulnerable, emotional, vocal person, if I can meet you there, then it breeds familiarity and you think that you can now trust me more because now we have this common ground. And when you get into that emotional space, all the other senses start to kind of dumb down. So if I'm showing you emotion and let's say you're not healed and you have some broken things, then it almost kind of feels like you're in present company. So it works, unfortunately, because when we're in a world where the men are supposed to be this prototype of masculinity, the guy who shows you the vulnerability sticks out like a sore thumb. So you feel like, oh my God, like, who's this guy? He's been hurt too. I have too. I've been cheated on before too. Oh my God. Who are you? And then the next thing you know, it's yeah. So I'm gonna land there.
All right. Bailey, you got anything you want to add, or do you disagree, or how do you feel about? Do you think there are men who show a vulnerable side intentionally just to gain a woman's trust and get her on the hook?
Yeah, not me personally, but yeah, I think so. I mean, human beings manipulate each other. Human beings lie. Human beings cheat. So absolutely, I think is men who do that. But you know, a lot of men do have that as a motive. It may be, he don't have nowhere to stay, or, he may just want sex. So, women, be careful. But I absolutely do agree that, yeah, there are men who do that.
Okay.
Because you're bonding over like trauma. Like Derek just said, hey, oh, he's been hurt too. I've been hurt. So, you kind of bonded over trauma, but that don't mean it's not real. It just means y'all share some hurt. And when you heal, that person might not be for you. You know what I'm saying? All y'all had in common was hurt. So now that I'm healed, but I can't deal with all the emotion that you had going on because I'm not in that space anymore. It's not, we don't have that in common. We don't share that in common anymore. Because some people don't want to heal. Some people want to, carry that around as a crutch forever.
All right. All right. And Queen Cole, let me get to you because I know you have to drop off. So let me ask you this Queen Cole. If a man is expressing what's on his mind and that's attractive to women, then what if he expresses something that you may deem to be a little bit weird? Like what if he has a sexual fantasy or something that you don't approve of or something like that? Can a man overshare?
Oh, can we all overshare? I think again, I'm not with the double standards, but I do appreciate honesty. Like if toes is your thing, and the queen keep her toes, looking good, then I want to hear what you gonna do what? So can we overshare? I think no. When it's with your significant other, I don't think there's anything that you should be able to feel like, oh, I need to hold back with. Now, if it's a public thing and we out and you like, oh, watch this, my girl love when I do this to her toes, I might be like, right now. So it just depends the time and the place. But I think with your significant other, you should definitely be able to share whatever it is, and give that person the opportunity to say yay or nay. Yes, I'm with this, or no, I'm not.
Okay. All right. And let the people know where they can find you because I know you said you had to go.
Yes, it was a great conversation. I'll still be listening in with you guys. Everybody can follow me on all social media platforms at One Queen Cole.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. And so I asked the question to Chandra. Do you think that some guys can overshare? I mean, I know vulnerability can be sexy, but I mean, can it be too much? Is it the content that makes it too much? Is it the frequency that can make it too much? And you're on mute.
I was going to say I have to go back a little bit, and I just want to make sure that I am clear when I say this. So I agree 100% when Queen was saying that it's about stages in your relationship. So when we have decided that we are a couple, because I think that's the problem a lot of times, is that people don't define what we are, and then they are exposing all of these things, women and men, allowing all this vulnerability, because vulnerability takes courage. It is courageous to open up your heart and to expose your underbelly to someone. And people do this in a ill-defined relationship. They don't even know if we together. Are we together? They don't even, and they're too afraid to ask, are we a couple? Are we a thing? So I think, like, if we're talking about marriage, there's nothing, whether it's sexual fantasies, crazy things, there is nothing you shouldn't be able to share, in my mind, right? Doesn't mean you have to, but there's nothing you shouldn't be able to share in that kind of relationship. I think that when the relationship isn't defined, I think you're gonna have to weigh that, and make sure that is this the right space, time, place to be sharing that? Because again, we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable with the wrong person, and they're going to expose that. Anybody that is, not on the up and up are going to expose anything that they see as weakness. So whether that's male or female.
All right. And Chrissy, how do you feel about it? As far as maybe a man overshares, he says something you don't like, or maybe it's a little too often that he has these vulnerabilities?
So I'm a big sharer myself. So I usually, for me personally, I welcome it, but I'm also the person who wants to heal everybody. So, I've got that hero complex. So for me, it's a little bit different. However, I will tell you most recently, being back on the single stage again, there was a gentleman that I did end up connecting with, and he would just constantly keep talking about his ex and how she screwed him over, and he's such a good man, and it's okay because he's gonna be okay, and because he's a prize for any woman that gets him. And it was just a big turn off for me. I was just like, are we compensating for something? Like, like what's going on? Like, I don't mind hearing a story about your ex and how it went wrong, but like to constantly every conversation is that she screwed up. I'm kind of wondering that, like, wait a minute, there's usually two parts, right? There's usually actually three: yours, hers, and then
And the
the truth
truth.
somewhere in
Yeah.
between, right? But something that goes wrong isn't usually just one party's fault. There's usually something, a bounce, like a paddle ball. There's something that's a give and take here. But it was a turnoff. I did not like it. I didn't know what he was overcompensating for. I don't know if he was reassuring himself that he was a good man, and by doing that, he had to reassure me. It was a no for me. And usually I'm a big, let me save you person. And this was like a goodbye, don't text me no more. Like, so
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Did he drive a Corvette? Oh, never mind. Uh, okay. D. Harris in Michigan says, I agree. Oversharing is just communicating and being honest. If it's something that makes the other uncomfortable, talk it out and gain mutual understanding. And Roger asked the question, so how long in a relationship should a man show his emotions? So I guess, is there a certain benchmark for a man to show his emotions? Is it once you become exclusive? Man, what do you all think about that question?
I'll
I think
say, good.
I think you can do it immediately. I just think we need to look at context and appropriateness, right? So, and know where you are. To be honest, know where you are. I think Queen said that earlier. Sometimes I'm not in the headspace to hear what you got to say, and other times you may not be in a headspace to hear what I have to say. So knowing where we are in this relationship, but I don't think it's ever too early to be able to, because that's what authentic is, man. And again, it takes courage to be vulnerable with somebody. I mean, because you don't know what they're gonna do with that information. That takes a lot. So I don't see it as weakness.
All right.
So I agree and disagree a little bit. Only here's why. So I'm vulnerable because usually when I'm starting talking, I usually put all my cards on the table because I want to let you know what I've been through, and I'm not going to deal with it again, right? So, but then what I'm also doing when I do that? I'm setting them up to be the person that they think I want them to be,
Absolutely.
not their true self.
Yep.
So it's a double-edged sword here, right? You want to be authentic, your authentic self, but at the same time, you're putting the cards in their hands like, oh, okay, all right, she likes consistency. All right, I better make sure I'm there when I say I'm going to be there. And you do that for the first 2 months, and you're like, "Ooh, child, he is consistent." And then month 3 is like his true colors come out. That boy is not consistent whatsoever.
It
Okay?
definitely takes 6 months, and if and I'll be honest, I was thinking about this as I was answering before. Sometimes we don't know if the relationship is even going to work until we have our first fight. And so to me, that first disagreement, and I don't mean knock down, drag out fight, but that first disagreement where we don't see eye to eye, and that's when you are vulnerable. That's when you're able to see or peek in and see a little bit about who this person is and what they value and what they stand for. And then you get to say, does that match who I am and what I stand for? And if it doesn't, I'm telling you, hightail it, run, get out of there. But a lot of people don't. They stick around and end up being hurt in the long run. But
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. And we'll get ready to wrap things up. And one more comment I missed earlier, dope discussion said, when I was younger, I wanted to be that common influence, but with maturity, I look for a man who can regulate his own emotions. That's more attractive.
Mhm.
All right. And she also added a person who talks about their ex relationship and they take no accountability. I'm turned off.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that would be a little too much for anybody, I think. But vulnerability is a strength, like you said earlier, Chandra. And in order to be a strong and healthy individual, vulnerability must take place with the people you have built trust with. So in doing so, it can strengthen your relationship. It can also help with your mental health. Being able to have someone you can confide in, and it can improve your quality of life. So it can take away a lot of pressure knowing that you don't have to do something on your own if you have someone to confide in. So guys, I mean, it's cool to ask your women for advice. If that's something you feel like you need to do and you trust them. If something at work is bothering you, then it's okay to vent and share with them. So just keep that in mind. I mean, there's certain levels to it, and yeah, sometimes you can do too much. If you're crying at the line on the line at the Lion King or something, or maybe some commercial about dogs in a shelter, then yeah, there are going to be some people who may judge you for that. All right, but we just have to keep things in perspective as far as what someone may deem too emotional or not. So, all right, on the next T2Q, we will be discussing online dating. Dating is more virtual than ever, so join us and we'll give you the pros and cons of online dating and how maybe the best way to approach it. That's on April 26th at 7:30 p.m. on the Talk to Q radio show. Go to talktoq.com and you'll find the show calendar. If you want to be on the show, you can RSVP by emailing me at talktoqnow@gmail.com or hit me up on social media at talktoq. I think, well, Chandra, I know you've already RSVP because you actually gave me the idea for the show. And so that's going to be April 26th. All right, final thoughts. We get ready to wrap things up. I appreciate you all taking the time to join. And let's see his comment from D here. She said, vaccine versus no vaccine, my life at the moment, but I love him regardless. We have an understanding. Oh, okay. Okay. So she says they got a incompatibility there as far as the vaccine discussion. All right, that's interesting. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up and get to final thoughts. I appreciate your time. And Chrissy, I will start with you. Your final thoughts on the evening, please. And feel free to share any social media you wish to share.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me on. I love being on. I always love the invites. Sometimes I can't make it, but I try. So my final thoughts is listen, at the end of the day, you need to be who you are, right? And just be true to who you are. If you're a person who shares your emotions, share them. And if you're a person who don't, then don't. Your person will find you and be okay with whatever persuasion you are on the spectrum. But I don't think that you should pretend to be one way or the other, because in the end, your true, authentic self is going to come out of it. I think men, when they find the right woman, because this is what we're talking about, right? I think ultimately men, when they find the right woman, they end up being vulnerable to that right individual. And that's why we still have, I mean, I'm in the world of hospice and I see marriages that have lasted 60, 70, 80 years. I get to witness that. Not a lot of people see that, but I get to witness that. And a lot of it does come from, I asked a couple one time, said, how did you get here? Because it's hard. It's not easy. And the husband said to me, you have to love them more than you love yourself. And that makes you vulnerable. So I'll just leave you with that.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And Bailey, let me get your final thoughts, bro.
I agree with Chrissy. It's best to be yourself. Be authentic, and it's okay to express yourself, man. It's okay to be emotional, but just make sure that you're choosing the right person to be able to display those emotions with. So, that's pretty much my take on it.
All right. Appreciate your time, bro.
Mhm.
And Chandra, get your final thoughts. Share any social media info you would like.
There we go. I think that the idea of vulnerability is scary. And I think to be on either side of that, right? To be the person being vulnerable as well as the person that's receiving that vulnerability, it's scary. What do I do with this? Is he telling me this for a reason? Am I supposed to, how am I supposed to act? Am I supposed to treat him different? What am I supposed to do? He just told me he was sexually abused as a kid. Well, was it by a woman? Was it by a man? Who did this, right? How am I supposed to respond? So it's a scary situation to be vulnerable or allow someone to be vulnerable. And I think that when we're talking about emotions, yeah, I want you to be authentic, but I also know that you can learn and grow in learning how to express those things and being better at that. So to just say this is who I am, that's how I'm going to be, and you both love each other, and that's not going to work, because you can learn how to express yourself in a way that works for everybody involved. So, but yeah, it's a scary thing, and again, it takes courage. It's the other side, of courage for me.
Yeah. And you make a good point too when it comes to something getting dumped on you like that. Sometimes you just got to tell the person you may need to talk to somebody like a professional. Sometimes you can't be the sounding board for something. If somebody says they were molested as a kid or something like that, sometimes that needs professional help. And maybe the response is to maybe listen and then recommend that person getting some help. So, all right. I appreciate you. And Derek, shut it down for me, bro.
All right. Final thoughts. I guess I would say for men, it's not even really good enough just to be vulnerable, but to really understand what your emotions are so that you can intelligently talk about them when it's time. Because I believe that every thing that you share, the vulnerability, the emotions, that there should be barriers for entry. You're not going to get it all when I first meet you. So over time, as we build trust and we spend time and all of that stuff, you might get a little more. Like Chandra said, it's a scary place, but spend some time just as a human being getting to understand your own emotions, whether you share them or not, just understanding what they are so that when it does come time that you're able to kind of speak about it. And even if you don't, get like, I'm gonna stay here for like literally 30 seconds. So for an example, there's certain things like for men that we may say that may mean like 10 different things. Like, I'm tired, and I'm tired could mean I'm depressed. I could be stressed out or whatever. And it's kind of like one of those things where when you have that certain level of communication with your significant other, she can see the cues. And when you have that even almost nonverbal communication and you now feel safe, then it may lead you into a path where you can actually start talking and having dialogue, because it's hard. It's hard. So I'm, as far as social media, I mean, you can find me on relationshipgumbo.info, the website, and that kind of ports you to everything where I'm at. So I'll just leave it there.
All right. I appreciate you taking the time, man. And his show is on tomorrow. What time?
Yep. 8 p.m. Eastern. Relationship Gumbo podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, be sure to check him out. And so I appreciate, again, you all. And if you can hang on the line for me while I shut things down, that's going to do it, people. I want to thank you all for joining, and I hope that you hit the like and the subscribe button, and just try to help expose me to new eyes, all right, or new ears if you're listening to the audio podcast. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of your week. You've been checking out the Talk to Q radio show. No experts, just opinions. All right.